What is up, everyone? Brandon Ferst, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench Podcast Network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. Welcome into another edition of the NFL Weekly here on the network, obviously breaking down everything the National Football League has to offer. Almost through. This will be a seventh division previewed. We'll have one more division next week. And then in 2 weeks, this show on Wednesday, we'll be talking about real NFL lines as we get ready for the NFL season. But to break down the AFC West tonight, we, of course, have the coach, Brandon Lupian. You can find Coach Lupian at Portland 76er. Coach Lupian, how you doing tonight, sir?
Doing quite well, gentlemen. It's always a good time to get on the air with you and shits and giggles and go over football. I mean, what's better than that, right?
Amen. It's we're obviously getting closer. As I said, we're probably about 2+ weeks away before we hit that first full weekend. I know Thursday, that opening, I think it's Dallas, Tampa Bay. Okay, that's cool. But I think if you're a real football fan, that first Sunday when you can wake up at 9:30 or wherever you are, at least 9:30 on the West Coast, put your picks in, put your fantasy team together over a cup of coffee and get ready to watch 10 hours of football. That's what it's truly about. But of course, if we are going to be talking about the AFC West, we have to bring in the king of that. And it is Raider Jim Martinez. You can find Raider Jim at Raider Jim 1090. Mr. Martinez, how you doing tonight, sir?
Every Wednesday is a good Wednesday when I'm talking NFL with you and the coach.
Amen. It's going to be a lot of fun tonight. Obviously, as we said, breaking down the AFC West. Normally throughout this, we've kind of started with the expected last place all the way up to the expected first place. Going to switch it up a little bit. The Raiders will be the last team we talk about, as that will, of course, be all for Raider Jim Martinez to dissect. But before we get to those, we got the other three teams to talk about, and we'll start in the Mile High City, a team that has actually made news as early as today, or they've obviously been making news, but had some news today. It is Teddy B. Teddy Bridgewater will be week one starting quarterback for the Broncos over Drew Lock. Obviously, a lot of question marks at the all over that field for Denver, but definitely, like most teams, figuring out who the starting quarterback, that's your first, movement towards that. But to dive a little deeper into the Broncos, we'll pass it over to Raider Jim Martinez. What's going on in Denver?
AFC West is more loaded than people might think, and I will tell you, it doesn't start with the silver and black. This is just, I think it's going to be much more competitive than a lot of people think. As far as Denver goes and the choice to put in Bridgewater, you're going to have both sides of the fence. People, the I told you so's, or this is a bad mistake, or why him and why not Locke? They don't have confidence in Locke. Let me tell you, the Raiders have Marcus Mariota. There's a lot of teams that could start Marcus Mariota and would love to start Marcus Mariota. So to have a backup, if you will, like Drew Lock, it's just a matter of only one guy can play quarterback. Okay, and now what do they gain by using Bridgewater? Consistency. A little more maturity, a little more game time. He's a little more consistent. Maybe not the big downfield threat that you have with the arm if you have Lock in there, but you're going to have consistency. But what is the key? What's week in and week out, Jim keeps opening up the hymnal and singing the same song. Who's on the offensive line? This offensive line is pretty darn good, even though if you listen to the experts say, no, they're not that great. They've got them rated, I think, 20th, 21st overall or something like that. Lloyd Cushenberry is going to be back anchoring the center of the line. Bobby Macy's going to be there. Calvin Anderson is Macy and Anderson are competing for the right tackle spot. And last year, right tackle for the Broncos was a problem. So that you have two good guys, great caliber players that are fighting for the position is a plus. And then they have this kid who had some issues last year. He was a 2026 round pick, Netane Moody. Now, let me tell you, this guy is probably going to be the second backup on the guard position, but he is playing like a beast. I watched some highlights of this guy from, I think it was just the past game, and he's holding guys off with one arm. I mean, he's just a specimen. They say their only problem is, he had he because he was young, he got beat a few times last year when he did get in the lineup. But all in all, they look like they're going to be set at guard. It's going to be Dalton Reiser is probably going to be starting guard on the left side. And then you have Garrett Bowles. Garrett Bowles is going to be the left side tackle. They've got a great offensive line. And so, give everybody a COVID-free season, and unfortunately 17 games now. But watch for Denver to be more competitive. They're not going to be a doormat by any stretch. They still have Melvin Gordon. He had just under 1,000 yards last year. They got Javonte Williams, who's going to be good, a nice backup right there. Wide receivers, they are not short on talent in the wide receiver area. They got Tim Patrick, who had 742 yards last year. Jerry Jeudy had 856 yards. They got 3 or 4 other guys that are still fighting for wide receiver slots. And then they also have, hopefully they're going to have back, there was kind of a question mark on this one, Noah Fant, the tight end. But I guess he's a little dinged up right now, and it's even questionable on if they think he's going to be the starter or not come week 1. I think that is just due to injury, though, or not even injury, just making sure he's 100%. He is not injured. And on the defensive side, and here's the other problem, how long can the defense stay on the field so that the offense can catch their breath and execute properly? This could be a problem. On the line, they're going to be fine, but they're kind of, they had tendency is let's put all our eggs in the Von Miller basket because he's Von Miller. Guess what? He's not the Von Miller he was 3 years ago or 2 years ago. He had injury last year. He had off-season issues that I'm sure, whether they say it doesn't bother him or not because they put it aside on game day, I don't buy it. So Von Miller is probably not going to be that dominating factor. Is he a presence? Yes. Does he get people's attention? Yes. So in that respect, definitely. Then they've got Bradley Chubb. And this kid is firing on all cylinders. Malik Reed, son of a gun. If that kid started 8 out of 16 last year, and if he has the breakout season like they're expecting him to have, along with Draymond Jones, this defense is a lot better than it looks too. The secondary, Bryce Callahan, Tavon Young, Jimmy Smith, Patrick Surtain. There's a kid that is paying all the proper respects to the family name. This kid is already playing like a man. So they're saying he may not be the starter on opening day, but watch for him to break into the starting lineup not too far into the season. Safeties, they still have Kareem Jackson, Justin Simmons. This defense, if they can keep the outside guys healthy, the edge guys, it's going to be better than what people think too. All in all, Denver's going to be respectable. I can see them fighting for at least second position in this division.
Yeah, especially if they get good quarterback play out of Teddy B. Myself personally, I've always probably been maybe, a bigger fan than most on Drew Lock, but you could probably maybe say the same thing about Teddy Bridgewater. At the very least, this will be an opportunity for maybe last year in Carolina could have been this, but for Teddy Bridgewater to kind of be now, okay, this is your team. He's never really had that since that injury. So we'll see how he goes on that. Now,
right.
Once again, I don't think Denver is fully just like, okay, it's the Teddy Bridgewater show from here on out. But as much of a vote of confidence as you can get in the preseason is getting that starting quarterback job. I don't think he has a terribly long leash, but I think he's got 7 or 8 games to kind of prove that, look, this is what I can bring to the table. And I agree with you. I don't think this team is going to need to do a whole lot offensively because that defense is really good. Bradley Chubb would be more than happy. And I think Von Miller would be as well, for Von Miller to be continually double teamed. If offensive coordinators make him the highlighted guy, I think Bradley Chubb would love that. And I think the whole Denver defense would love that. I don't think that'll be the case, but it's a very, very talented defense and the offensive line. Like you said, I think that could be a playoff team or a playoff offensive line if they had maybe just a step up in quarterback, but we'll see how Teddy B can do behind a very good offensive line. But Coach, Lupian, you actually had some, probably more exposure to Teddy Bridgewater than either of us in the last couple years, or at least obviously not last year. But for Teddy B, I feel like he went undefeated a couple years back in the 6 games that Drew was out. Everyone kind of expected the Saints to fall off, and Teddy B kept them plugging along. But what are your thoughts on the Denver Broncos?
Yeah, I don't really have much thoughts on the Broncos per se, as maybe what you're asking about, the service of Teddy Bridgewater firsthand. Raider Jim mentioned the Raiders having a Marcus Mariota on their quarterback depth charts. Well, you got 2 quality quarterbacks here for the Broncos in Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater. And as we've seen all last COVID season and into the playoffs, there's maybe 1 or 2 teams that never had a backup quarterback issue. Probably one of them was the Saints, and then who knows about that? And then the Raiders, they had Mariota. But every other team in the league that needed that backup, whether it was an injury or whatever, they're all scrambling for these guys, unknown commodities. And you might have like a Tyler Heineke over in Washington. And so there's some security in the quarterback position room for the Broncos. But on with Teddy Bridgewater, yeah, this guy did go 6-0 with my Saints when Drew Brees was out. Didn't do too well against the Rams when Drew got hurt. Had a tough time catching up to the speed of the game, but you got to give that guy a break because that was his first action since the knee recovery. Speaking of the knee recovery, though, prior to, this is a guy that led Minnesota down the field, and if it wasn't for a 27-yard field goal miss, they're in the NFC Championship game. Not on him. It's on the kicker at that point. But he led that team, and that offense was dynamic, and that was a really good team. And they just fell short on a foot of a kicker. So he knows how to manage the game. He's never been one to turn the ball over, okay? And he knows he's got weapons. Jerry Jeudy, for one. Raider Jim went over his wide receiver core. And then, you have some pressure taken off you with the skills of a Melvin Gordon. So, he's not going to be asked to make a miracle play. He's not going to be in situations where he has to force balls into situations. They're going to have a pretty steady offense. And if it's not confirmation now, them naming him, this is a guy that beat out a Drew Lock that's been in that system over a season and a half, and this guy's just coming in an off-season trade, and he's winning the job. One, you could say he came in prepared. Two, they're confident in his ability to lead and guide the offense. To name him now, wow. Like, what kind of impression he really made behind the doors versus what we see on media. My final confirmation comes from Coach Parcells. Coach Parcells, I read an article the other day about Coach Parcells, and the question was asked, what your thoughts are on Teddy Bridgewater going to Denver. And he goes, if he's not named a starter by now, something's wrong with Denver. He endorses Teddy Bridgewater. He recognized what he did with Minnesota. He recognized what he did with New Orleans. He recognized what Matt Rule didn't do for him in Carolina, which Parcells pretty much says rookie coach doesn't know how to coach, especially a quarterback, a winner like Teddy Bridgewater. So being endorsed by the Big Tuna, I think is confirmation alone. Teddy B is going to have a pretty wonderful year. Denver is very happy with what they've seen in him so far. And Teddy Bridgewater is not a rookie quarterback or a second-year quarterback that's going to, let's just say, put himself in a bad situation and drop the ball or shoot himself in the foot with bad errors, mental and physical. He's a ball player, and he knows how to win. And that's all he's ever done from high school, college, and in the pros, and then facing adversity. So huge endorsement from the Big Tuna. Raider Jim hit the nail on the coffin with everything else. Denver might be that sleeper team in the AFC West, and Raider Jim 100% again. This is going to be a very competitive division all season long.
Yeah, I think the Wests, the AFC and NFC West are 1 and 2 in terms of the talent. I think the NFC West may be a little more deeper. I think 1 through 4 a little deeper, but in that NFC West, I don't think you have a team of the caliber like the Chiefs, because as competitive as I do believe this division is, I think all of us are in agreement that this will be Kansas City's division, barring some injury or something that unforeseen happening to Patrick Mahomes. But the next team we're going to be talking about is it's an interesting team. Obviously, it is the artist or the team formerly known as the San Diego Chargers. And obviously in the city of San Diego, it is maybe a bit of a bad word, or you're definitely on, one way or the other. You either hate the Chargers or you don't, or you're still stuck with them. Everyone hates the Spanoses. We all know that. But for this team, this is a team that has a long history of kind of shake your head moments. And I can't believe that happened. But then again, it happened to the Chargers. So that does make it believable. And maybe one of the more unbelievable things I've seen in any sports situation was what we saw last year that completely changed the tide of the Los Angeles Charger franchise forever. And I'm going to call it the Pulp Fiction move of a training staff going a little too hard into a cortisone shot onto Tyrod Taylor and collapses his lung 2 hours before the game starts. And by the way, this kid that we wanted to sit down and groom for a year behind Tyrod Taylor has to start immediately. And what does Justin Herbert do? Goes on, puts on a show. No one ever looks back. And we go from making jokes about firing the trainer to now making jokes about building statues from this guy. So they go from that and just really one of the more bizarre, yet I guess that kind of makes sense for this franchise. But with that, we'll pass it over to you, Raider Jim Martinez, the Los Angeles Chargers. What are your thoughts?
Going to be interesting. Herbert got put into that position where it was sometimes people run downhill, they look down at their feet, they trip and they fall. This kid just started running downhill, and I'll look up when I get to the bottom. He played a fantastic season. Now, everything being what it is, this is a different year, different season. Now he has time to think about it. Going back to the Denver Broncos for just a second, Drew Lock. Is this possibly the best thing to do for Lock? Because a lot of pressure comes off now. Mentally, he's going to be able to get right because he's going to be on the sidelines primarily watching, observing, and absorbing. And now he's going to be able to go out. He might be more confident, and he already had confidence when he stepped on the field. This kid has had time. Herbert or Abear, however he's saying his name these days, he may be in another mindset. Now he's having time to think about it. And now when he steps out there, it might be, an oh shit moment. What am I, and especially with, they have realigned the offensive line. There's new pieces in front of him. Is that going to work? Only time will tell. And maybe he has more maturity than I'm giving him credit for. I just think it's going to be more of a learning year for him this year than last year was. Is he going to perform well? Yep. Is he good? Yep. No, hands down, no problem. Do I think that the Chargers will be better than the Broncos? I do not. I really think when it comes right down to it, they're going to be possibly same caliber, or Denver again is just going to be a little bit better. I'm looking at some of the notes I have here. Let's see, we're talking about running backs. Austin Eckler is a top 10 back, but they don't have many people behind him. And so what happens when he goes down? The Chargers tend to be an injury-prone team, it seems. And with that, I don't know what their new depth is. The interior defensive line seems to be a concern. as well as the linebackers and the corner, you know, their defense in general. Let's just be honest, the defense in general. And I represent the Raiders, so it's not like I'm here pointing and laughing at anybody when it comes to defense, because I have no room to point and laugh. But it's just going to be same thing. How's that offensive line? He's got a decent receiving core, but can the defense keep the other teams out on the field to tire them down and to give the offense time to keep their breath, keep what they need in the fourth quarter if they have to make that fourth quarter run? And mentally, again, how is Hebert going to perform? Kenneth Murray, he's a kid out there playing linebacker that they say is actually, he's a kid you got to watch. They said he could have a really good season this year and should make some noise out on the defensive side of the ball. Asante Samuel Jr., we'll see how well he does. But again, there's another one. He was raised right by the right kind of professional. And so if he steps up and he carries on the family name, then you're going to see a great player there too, you know, potentially Pro Bowler down, you know, 2-3 years into the league.
Yeah, it's the one thing I will say about the Chargers, and it's something they've dealt with really for a long time, even when they were in San Diego. I'm going to be very interested to see. Obviously, look, they're moving into a real stadium. It's no longer Soccer City or not soccer. Excuse me. It's not the Home Depot Center, but I think it's like Dignity Health Park or whatever. They're moving to the big leagues, so they're moving up to SoFi. My question now with year number 2/year number 1 at SoFi with fans, just going through their first games at home. Let me just run through the home games: hosting the Cowboys, hosting the Raiders, hosting the Browns, hosting the Patriots, and then I'll just use those first 4 or 5. Outside of the Browns, it is going to be 70-30 for the other team. Justin Herbert last year didn't have to deal with any snap counts, or excuse me, I'm sure he dealt with snap counts, but the silent
noise.
Yeah, the noise. How do you deal with that? It's one thing to go to Lambeau and play the Packers on Thursday night or whatever, and it's loud. It's another thing, as Phillip Rivers brought up towards the end of his career, it's another thing to literally run 16 weeks or 16 games, 16 practices or game plans where you have to at some point exercise the silent count, whether you're at home or you're away. And that was at Qualcomm, where you had at least, you know, the loyal fans that were still, you know, even 4-12, they're still going to go and try and cheer them on. The Raiders come to town in Inglewood? Come on. That is a 90% Raider fan base, and I'm probably being nice to the Charger fans in this. I mean, I don't care what anybody says, Rams, Charger fans, the Raiders are the top team in LA. The Raiders are probably the top team in the whole of California, and they don't even play in the state. So that's my question, and wondering for Herbert, or I know Coach obviously down in the Bayou wants it to be Hebert. Hebert, yeah. But how does he deal with that? Because you're gonna have to deal. I mean, I know later on one of my coworkers is a big Steeler fan. He's already bought. He's got 8 tickets. Him and all his buddies are going up there. There are going to be so many towels. They don't even need to put paper towels in the restrooms. Everyone's going to have a terrible towel. It's all good. So you really have to deal with that. And it's going to be something that I don't think Herbert has had to deal with 16 times a year. And I don't know. Look, I mean, Minnesota and Cleveland are also on that home schedule. It'll probably be 50-50. But still, I mean, that's still ridiculous that we're talking about a 50-50 fan base at home. You're getting off easy. They're going to be bare minimum 12 games this year, maybe 13, that the Chargers at some point will have to run a silent count. No other team will have to do that at home, really at all, maybe besides Jacksonville towards the end of the year, you know, against, you know, Tennessee or Miami. I don't know how it goes. But with that, Coach Lupian, what are your thoughts on the Los Angeles Chargers?
You know, the Los Angeles Chargers have always been that team that just says, makes you like scratch your head and say, they did what? You know, whether it was hiring a rookie coach in Mike McCoy and ending up, what the heck did he end up doing, right? And then hiring, I forgot even the guy's name last year, and you're like, who? What? And then they move, and you're like, why? Because of a vote in stadium? And then they ran into a soccer, stadium, and you're still kind of like, shit. But then, like, last year's draft, the one time that this wasn't an issue, like, oh, God, they drafted who? Justin Herbert falls into her lap, and they're just kind of like, thank goodness. Like, I have two hands to, like, clap versus shake my head about. Then they get rid of their coach, and then they get another rookie coach in Brandon Staley, who everyone's just like, maybe it's the McVay effect because he's coming from the Rams, but everyone's just like, just glowing reports about Brandon Staley. But then you're like, gosh, another rookie, and you don't know what to expect from him. What he did with a really stacked defense. They're number one in the league in defense last year. But, I mean, you better be with an Aaron Donald and a Jalen Ramsey and a Middleton and whomever else is on that, defense. You better be a number one defense, or you're just a horrible defensive coordinator. So they hire this rookie head coach, and that's what they're going into this season again. So not only is the Herbert or A-Bears, whatever, I already messed up, second head coach, second offensive coach, new system, new house, never going to have home field advantage. Kind of just go like, what? Like, what am I going to expect from these guys? So, I think the only positive is Herbert's season last year, deservedly so. But then you're like, sophomore slump, who knows?
Yeah.
He's too athletic. He should have been the number one overall pick going into that draft. He was rated preseason number one, but no one expected the season Joe Burrow was going to have. And then he falls to their lap, and but they'll find a way to mess this kid up or not surround him with anything a la Rivers. So who knows? They're still a head scratching team.
Yeah. And yeah. I think that the head scratching began, well, it didn't begin, but at least for me, it started this, obviously everyone talks about the 14-2 firing of Marty Schottenheimer. And, you can talk about Marty Ball, you can talk about things like that, but let's just think about it. Since then, the only coach the San Diego or LA Chargers have hired that had actual head coaching experience is Norv Turner. That's the only one. It's been Mike McCoy, Anthony Lynn, and now Brandon Staley, who have been rookie coaches. You can't sit here and tell me right now that this offseason, they didn't have the opportunity to go out and get a coach who's been there, who's done that. And now, obviously, everybody, I think it's like you said, the McVay effect. Nobody wants the Mike McCarthy, who did it for 10 years in Green Bay. And maybe not the best example, but I'm more talking about his career path rather than maybe the individual. But nobody seems to want that coach who did it somewhere else. Say Mike Tomlin becomes available. A lot of coaches or a lot of ownership groups these days, they want to be the one. I went and found him. I was the one who found him in the defensive coordinator ranks. I was the one who saw him when he was a quarterback coach. And I don't even need to see him as an offensive coordinator. Yeah, I'm talking about you, Anthony Lynn. Those situations to where they want to be the smartest people out there, almost to the point where they'll fail 5 times in a row because they just want to get that young hotshot McVay, as opposed to going out and getting someone like a Ron Rivera. Maybe hasn't had the overall success year in and year out, but you know what? When he gets what he needs to out of his players, they're going to make the playoffs and they're going to be damn good. And that seems to be the issue for this team. Obviously, it is a situation of it's a failure from the top. I kind of talked about it earlier. You might be on 2 different sides of the fence if you live in San Diego about how you support the Chargers, or if you still support the Chargers. But everyone in San Diego is of the like mind that the Spanoses cost this team or this city a team. And I'm sure cost this team, over the last 10 years, at least 1 or 2 championships by their just absolutely asinine moves. So it's not really a big surprise. I mean, like I said, it literally took a Pulp Fiction-esque moment for them to say, okay, we got to start the kid. Because if you saw this kid, or if you saw what was going on and what he was doing in preseason, and you still believed Tyrod Taylor gave you the best opportunity, that's why you're unemployed right now, Anthony Lynn. But with that, it is time to dive into the expected, not only division winner, but the expected AFC winner. And I think they're number 2 on the odds board to win the Super Bowl. It is, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes, and all those weapons he has, as well as Andy Reid. Obviously not Le'Veon Bell. We remember that story. But for that, we'll head to Raider Jim. What do you got for the Kansas City Chiefs?
Everybody hang on for the Kansas City Chiefs, because I'm telling you, here's what you're going to see this year. Holmes, his first year, when he just lit it on fire, and people just didn't know what to expect, or nobody had any idea that this is how this kid was going to come out and play. Last year, they had an idea, but I think with COVID and everything else, there were probably a lot of skeptics. There's no way this kid can play like this again this year. And he did, but he got beat. You think about it, early in the season, who was the team that beat him? The abysmal Oakland Raiders beat them. And so now they're coming back year 3. Well, guess what? I think everybody has seen the Patrick Mahomes show. And so people are going to be more prepared for it. Is Mahomes 100%? Is his turf toe healed? And people can make fun of that if you want. Everybody remembers, all the San Diego sports fans remember what a gamer Tony Gwynn was. And the only time you saw Gwynn out was what? He had bone spurs on his heel, for gosh sakes. And he's like, man, I just can't walk on this thing. And that, foot pain is a bad thing. And especially a young man like Patrick Mahomes, who does a lot of the stops, the cuts, the changing directions on a dime. Add to that, when he steps up this year, we'll see how he does with change. He's got a rookie playing center. He's got a new left tackle, Eric Fisher. It had to make him feel good to be a rookie and to go out the second year and see this big body Eric Fisher, who was probably patting him on the head saying, don't worry, like Gilligan and the skipper, don't worry, little buddy, I got you. And now, trust me, Orlando Brown, forced to be reckoned with. But the knock on him was, and has been, and again, knock from who? Guys that probably never played left tackle, but a lot of people have said that is not his strong suit. His strong suit was playing on the right side for the run game, and that's why they had him lined up there in Baltimore for most of his time. He is coming in with the chip on his shoulder. I'm going to show everybody I can play left tackle. You wonder how that makes Mahomes feel. Excuse me, you're putting this guy out here who they're already saying maybe can't play it 100%. I need 100%. So it'll be interesting to see how the left side of the line plays out. And again, as I mentioned, they've got a rookie playing center. They also have a rookie, I believe, playing right guard, if I'm not mistaken. Now, with that, they do have Joe Thuney. Joe Thuney came from the Pats. They got Lucas Nang back, and Nang sat out the 2020. He did the COVID-19 opt-out, but he will be back. And they said the one thing he did do while he opted out was he stayed in shape. He's ready. He's good to go. So we know he's got, call it 60% of a decent line. But is that going to be enough? And is it going to be 60% when he needs it? Humphreys, they say, is the real deal. They say this kid is good enough. If you've got a team that's been back-to-back Super Bowls, and they think highly enough of him to put him in front of their top commodity, then he must be good. Running backs, they still have Edwards-Helaire. Only thing they're looking for with him is, one, is he 100% healthy? Two, a little more productivity in the passing area. Can he be a better target out of the backfield? Because I think he had not even 300 yards last year out of the backfield. They'd like a little more than that. They got Darren Williams backing him up. They've got a Jerick McKinnon, Darwin Thompson. They got some decent guys out there. Tyreek Hill, what do you say about Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce? That's if you've got those two guys for targets, you're set. They do not have Sammy Watkins, but they do have McCole Hardman, and probably going to see DeMarcus Robinson and Byron Pringle fighting for lineup positions. One or both of them will definitely be on the roster. Again, Kansas City, are they the kids to beat? Probably. Are they going to be as dominating as the last 2 years? Maybe not. They may have to work a little harder. And if they have to work a little harder, how's that going to impact them with the additional week of the season and when it gets into playoff time? Defensive side of the ball, they're pretty solid. They got a kid that's he's probably going to be a second stringer or the backup. I don't really like that term. Behind Frank Clark, Mike Dana. This kid is something. Fast. He plays on the edge. They also have Willie Gray still as a linebacker, Anthony Hitchens, Chavarius Ward. Their defensive backs, Sorensen, Matthew Sneed. These guys are just good. They're just good. So on the defensive side of the ball, nothing to worry about. They're going to be the guys that make the plays to keep the offense in the game or to protect those leads.
Yeah, and one of the big things, I'm glad you brought up the offensive line, obviously losing a few pieces, bringing guys in. One of the biggest things I would say about quarterbacks like Mahomes, a Kyler Murray, those offensive line and quarterbacks, they really got to be on the same page because obviously, unless it's a designed rollout, it's normally that offensive lineman is going to be the last to know that the quarterback's out of the pocket. I mean, he's got his back to him. So, there might be times where maybe he's blocking the guy out to the right. And, Patrick Mahomes looks left and veers right. And that offensive lineman thinks, hey, you know what? I made a great block. I pushed him out to the right side. And next thing you know, boom, you actually threw him right into the quarterback. So I think that communication, that camaraderie is definitely something they need to focus on. I'm sure, Mahomes, I really do believe as electric as Mahomes is outside of the pocket, I think they would prefer to have Mahomes more or in the pocket or stay in the pocket a little bit more for a multitude of reasons. But at the same time, I do kind of think that cuts into what Mahomes is so good at, that kind of unpredictability. But it's going to be very, very interesting. I'm glad you brought up a couple other names because I think it's going to take more than just Patrick Mahomes being an MVP type level for these guys to make it back to a third consecutive Super Bowl. But Coach Lupian, what are your thoughts on the Kansas City Chiefs?
Let's talk about, what I want to talk about is what they don't have to do. They don't have to replace an Eric Bieniemy at offensive coordinator. They don't have to re-scheme and go through a new playbook because he was the hot coaching hire that didn't get the job. So I'm calling him the coach in waiting pretty soon. But that's something that, for all it's worth, it's probably worth a gosh darn lot looking at, Denver's going through a quarterback change. The Chargers are going through a head coaching change. But not, the Kansas City Chiefs, they don't have to go through any of that little nuance change other than just bodies. And the way free agency is nowadays and the way, veterans get cut nowadays to save salary cap money, these teams are used to changing bodies more than, and as an easier transition with just changing bodies than changing schemes and changing offensive or defensive coordinators or even head coaches. So, this team already, as loaded as they are, they're going to continue to be machine-like, ultra-athletic machine-like. Like Raider Jim said, they have Darren Williams as their backup running back, San Diego's own Darren Williams, who had an outstanding game the year they won the Super Bowl, just outstanding as a rookie. So, these guys are loaded. They have the honey badger in the backfield, and they don't have the big names up front as a defense, but they do some really good things as a whole. And, it would have been a different Super Bowl if Fisher didn't get hurt. And Mahomes was at least 80% healthy, not trying to overextend himself scrambling in that game. But it'll be interesting to see how steady and consistent and dominating they can be this upcoming season.
Agreed. It's going to be tight up there. Obviously, if we do get what we expect, a very competitive division, it's, kind of like what Raider Jim said, that's going to be an extra game. And something else to point out too, that extra game, I don't know it off the top of my head, but it's going to be a first place team. Whatever division in the NFC that the AFC West is paired up with. So it's going to be a first place team from last year. And it won't be the NFC East. I mean, they do get to play all 4 teams in the NFC East, but so before you make a joke about, the NFC East really didn't have a first place team, which you're kind of right, but it isn't that situation. So that gets a little more difficult. Once again, I don't quite know what division they're paired up with or what that extra game is, but at the very least, that's an extra 60 minutes of, I don't want to say holding your breath that Patrick Mahomes gets through healthy, because it's not like this is a guy who's been injured constantly. That's definitely not the case. But we all know that this team, if they lose Patrick Mahomes, this is a much different conversation that we're having, period. No matter what type of weapons and how good everywhere else looks, without Patrick Mahomes, this team is mightily different. But with that, it is the time, I believe, you've all been waiting for, and I have definitely been waiting for, really all offseason, to get Raider Jim's outlook on the 2021 Silver and Black moving in. Well, actually, let me say, showing off their new home for the first time this year. They had a dry run behind closed doors, if you will, last year with no fans. This year, they will invite not only fans, but vaccinated or proof of negative test fans before you can enter into Allegiant Stadium. But Raider Jim, what do you got for your beloved Las Vegas Raiders?
Well, for me, this is the make or break year for John Gruden. I've sat reference again a couple times today to get myself what 3 years. A long time ago, and not long ago, it was brought back in. He's going to start winning immediately. They are not even they have not had a season yet where they've played over 500. And for them to go out now and they have this new stadium, roll out the doormat. Welcome mat is one thing, but to be the doormat at your own home is not going to be a good look. And that's my concern, is that they're already a little bit banged up on the offensive line. They had to sign a tackle the other day because somebody went down at practice. They've got Alex Leatherwood, and this kid's as big as they get. And as again, great D1 national champion, blah, blah, blah. Guess what? This is the NFL. And they said he is not playing like the kid that, should be a number 1 pick or be, they don't have great expectations. They have expectations that he will develop into an excellent player, but he's not walking in. He's not the he's not the young man out there in Kansas City. And now I just was talking about him and now escapes me, but the young man that's going to play center. That kid steps in, gets a starting role. Everybody thinks he's great. Leading the center of the line, Alex Leatherwood is not that. He's good, he's strong, he's personable, he's polite, he's professional, he's all the great adjectives, but can he play? We'll see. Time will tell. Derek Carr, once again, the other thing, going back to Drew Lock from the Denver Broncos, kind of don't like when I hear the critics get too hard on him, because he's kind of put in the same type of situation as a Derek Carr. Is it Derek Carr's fault he got sacked 50 times when Gruden came back? No, it was these guys in front of him, or the offensive scheme, or just who knows what. The quarterback can only do so much, and if the skills aren't there, then yeah, the guy should be benched. But there are coordinators and coaches that their job is to make sure you can get the most out of that quarterback. The running game, Josh Jacobs is going to be the go-to guy again. We'll see how he does. He had a really good season last year, but in my estimation, like Henry Ruggs, a little too small. But hopefully these guys can stay healthy and they're not banged up after before the first half of the season even is over. Waller and Renfro. There's your two guys in the receiving corps. To me, those are the stars right now. That's the guys that's going to be your go-to guys. They unfortunately let Aitman go yesterday, which I was really, it was too bad. Marcel Aitman, because I really thought he was that blue collar, the guy that you could call on at any time. Need you to go in and play the whole game. Need you to go in on third and long. Need you to go in on fourth because we really need to convert. He was a good option, a good target. So Richie Incognito, he's good. He's taken a real leadership role on the offensive line, and without a Rodney Hudson, it's great to have a guy like that. Can he stay healthy? Because he tends to have issues with injuries. So all in all, on the offensive side of the ball, it's going to be tentative at best. And on the defensive side of the ball, we'll see. I got a couple shots thrown at me on Twitter over the weekend because I watched the Rams game and I watched the Raiders. I watched the Raiders do what they did so well last year, and they could not hang on to a lead. And the only reason they won the game is because the Rams could not execute a 2-point conversion. Other than that, the Raiders couldn't stop them. The Rams did whatever they really wanted to do. And, somebody came at me with, do you not understand that's the third string guys, or these are the guys that are fighting for a spot? Yeah, well, you know what? In the world of business, what you do is you go in and you recruit and you hire based on the ability to step in and do the job of your starter. And if the Raiders don't do that and guys go down, you can't hope that there's a grab bag of free agents out there, unsigned people, that you can just call in at a moment's notice and have them step in. So the defense, we'll see how the former Seattle coordinator does with these guys. The lineup's not bad. Let me see. First official, one of the depth charts here. Yannick Ngoku at defensive end, not bad. Quentin Jefferson at defensive tackle, not bad. Hankins again in the middle. Max Crosby, that kid is just continues to be stellar. It's the secondary, and the cornerbacks, the free safeties. The secondary has been Swiss cheese for too many years. And so if they don't have guys that can play the edge of the outside and stop the pass and do better reads and break up passes, we need a full season out of Jonathan Abram. 2 years, he has not played a full season's worth of games. I think he's played 14 games after 2 years. Plays great. He's a madman, but we need him 17 out of 17. And a lot of that has to do with how he comes in and how disciplined he is with not being too crazy throwing his body around. It's not the days of George Atkinson and guys like that, Willie Brown. Unfortunately, these guys were made differently. They hit differently, and they could deal it out without penalties. So these guys do have to approach the game a little differently. So it'll be interesting to see. But, John Gruden, year number 4 of 10 on the contract, $100 million contract. How much more patience is Raider fan base and Raider administration supposed to have? I don't know, but I think one more year of 500 or less ball, that should be the writing on the wall.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because obviously, Mark Davis, owner of the Raiders, in the grand scheme of things, in the world of NFL ownership, and I that's the key here. In the world of NFL ownership, prior to this move, and maybe even right now, because he hasn't got, asses in the seats money yet, but Mark Davis is a not wealthy owner. And I know that sounds ridiculous. I understand that. But relatively, you look at the Dan Snyders and the Jerry Jones and the Stan Kroenkes, Mark Davis is a peasant. So the fact that you bring that up with John Gruden, I always felt that because of that, that it was going to help John Gruden. However, getting asses in the seats and that Las Vegas revenue, and the thing about the Raiders is, the Chargers can move away and the Rams can move out of St. Louis, and those cities will say, screw you. Well, guess what? The Raiders aren't like that. There's a dump truck or a work truck that drives by in the North County area, and it says, we're not a city, we're not a country, we're a nation. And that is Raider Nation. It doesn't matter what city you put in front of that silver and black or that Raider moniker, 98% of the fan base is going to follow them everywhere. However, I will say one thing. The city of Las Vegas makes it very easy for, kind of like San Diego had, and LA in a way as well. But San Diego, we always talk about, look, when it's December and the Patriots or an East Coast big market team is coming to San Diego or coming to Southern California in December, and your family takes one trip a year and you live in Boston or New Hampshire or Minnesota, hey, you want to spend a week in December in San Diego where it's not going to be less than 60 degrees and I can catch my football team? Well, guess what? You can do the same thing for Vegas. Now, once again, because of that fan base, I don't think it will be as dramatic, but I definitely do think it is something to be thought about, because look, I'll tell you this right now, in terms of mileage, it would probably be easier to go up to SoFi Stadium, but I would much rather head to Las Vegas for, an entire weekend built around a football game rather than an entire football game built around how are we going to beat traffic.
If I may, real quick.
Yes.
You alluded to the Chargers schedule. We were talking about the Raiders, and I would just real quick on the Raiders schedule. I think theirs is pretty much the first two games of the season are going to determine or give you a good overview of how the Raiders are going to look come December, come January. They open up on Monday night against the Ravens. They're already, it's already Ravens -4. On a home game, it's Ravens -4. Now, they play Monday night. They're going to get done, 9:30, 10 o'clock West Coast time. They're going to go home, wake up really sore, go to the training room the next day, get rubbed down, iced down. Thursday, they're going to get on a plane because they are going to have their first road game in Pittsburgh 6 days later. They don't even get the full week off, and they're going to go to Pittsburgh and play the Steelers. Then they're going to fly back here and take on the Dolphins, and who knows what Dolphins team is going to show up. So the Dolphins could go either way, but I do not see the Raiders being, by any stretch, being the favorite in the first two games. The 4-point line is not going to move much on that opening game, that Monday night game.
And yeah, it is one thing to point out as well. I could be wrong, but I'm 99% sure the NFL has done away with 2 Monday night games week 1. So I do believe the Raiders-Baltimore game will be the only show in town. So it won't be that 4 o'clock then to 7:15 start. So it'll be the normal 5 o'clock game for them. But Coach Lupian, what are your thoughts on the Las Vegas Raiders?
As a target destination, I would much rather watch my Saints in Las Vegas than anywhere up in LA. LA's just not my kind of place. So, when we get back on that schedule, Raider Jim, be first. We must have those press passes, and it's a utmost must. Now, unfortunately for the Raiders, this is going to be their second season in their stadium, and if I may act a little trollish, they're not going to be getting the calls that they were getting last season because the NFL, well, as someone would say, the NFL is going to make sure that the Raiders are going to get calls because they opened up their stadium. Now, all those calls are supposedly going to go to the Rams and the Chargers this season. So we will see if prophecy speaks for itself. But, Raider Jim, I don't know. You say this is Gruden's, he's got to make or break this season. I don't know, man. Like, I tease you about it and I laugh about it because you're so hard on him, and rightfully so. That's not a shot at you. You've hit it every season long because he's eaten his own words from his opening press conference. But I still think what are your other options? Like a rookie head coach that was on Sean McVay's staff like this season, if they get rid of him, or like a proven coach like Mike Tomlin that's been mentioned, but he's still Steelers property. But like he's. I don't think this is his make or break season, whether they let him go or not. For your sake, I hope it is, but I just don't feel the same way. Now, this is a team that so far has been proven to the words of their leader. I agree with that. But this is a process, and I only hope for the best for him and that team versus not. So, I want to see the success, but man, like we've already talked to 3 other teams in this division. This is going to be a competitive division, and it's just one of those years. Like, let's be honest, no one expected the Giants to do what the Giants are doing in the West, right? And they are, and I don't think everyone's expecting what Denver possibly can do. Because it's just one of those things. But yeah, they did beat the Chiefs. They did beat my Saints, and it seems like they played up for those 2 teams. And they just got to mature and play up for every game so far. We know what they could do. They could score. We'll see if they could defend. Seems like they're making the right moves to address the line. It's all about production, and until week 1 starts, you're projecting talent, and they're projecting talent when they draft them, and they just got to put in the work. They got to put in the work, and they're one of a few teams that won't have a backup quarterback issue once regular season starts. So
Yeah,
that's a positive.
definitely.
Another note on their schedule is, as I look at it, before Halloween, they will have played 50% of their AFC West games. They have 3 division games before the end of October.
Wow.
That's going to be telling.
Yeah. And, exactly a week before Halloween, I was planning on, maybe myself and Raider Jim heading out to Vegas to see the Raiders take on the Eagles. And even just in the last 30 seconds, I went, what, let me see what the secondary market is telling me. And it's still telling me, hell no. Yeah. So $300 for the cheapest ticket. I will enjoy it sitting at home without the traffic and all that. But yeah, it's going to be an experience to go to that. But it's probably one of those, unless you're, you really want to be there for that first year, you're going to have to shell out the pennies, obviously. And then obviously the COVID situation as well. I believe at this point, they are the only stadium to do that, but I believe there might be others at least coming. So I will ask Raider Jim this, because there was a report. It might've been this weekend or last week. Yeah.
Khalil Mack is not coming to the Raiders.
So I just want to know what Raider Jim's thoughts were on that, because in my mind, I felt like I was being punked. I felt like TMZ got some really bad information and just ran with it. But I mean, I feel like the Khalil Mack Raider relationship is far beyond putting back together, especially when you kind of do it in a fact of, hey, you don't really get a choice. We're trading you there. You better figure it out. Obviously, it didn't happen, but I definitely just want to hear your thoughts on that, Mr. Martinez.
Yeah, and I tried to look for as much information as I could on that, and then I told myself I was going to avoid the topic at all costs today. But okay, we can talk about it. My understanding is they broke the news this week, but the efforts were actually made several weeks ago, before training camps even started. And I understand it was pretty much Mark Davis or whoever, Mayock, picking up the phone, dialing, introducing themselves, and then getting a dial tone on the other side. There was not even a discussion. It was almost like, are you like you said, are you punking me? Are you kidding me? You want us to trade who to where? And yeah, so I think they did put it out there, but no, it's not going to happen. And quite honestly, there it goes again. I know I made a remark 2 weeks ago, if not last week, that kind of puts age of an athlete in perspective, because they were talking about the Bears and the aging linebacking core led by the Khalil Mack, who is now 30. or something like that. It's like, oh my gosh. But 30, that age, playing the linebacker the way he plays it for as many years as he has, he's probably still got 5-6 good years left. I would like to think, if he stays healthy. Do you want to absorb that salary and bring him back into Oakland? No. He's great. He's fantastic. He's not going to turn everything around. Yeah. They sent him to Chicago. Look at what the Bears have done since he's been with Chicago. No Super Bowls, yeah. Not a top #1 defense. He's still playing great, but it's the other 10 guys. There's 10 other guys you got to worry about. Putting one name out there, I mean, granted, would it be nice to see him behind Hankins and Max Crosby? Yeah, wouldn't hurt, wouldn't suck, as they say, but it's just not going to happen.
Especially salary cap wise. This isn't the, Major League Baseball. You can just keep throwing money at people. And even if it was, the Raiders, as I kind of brought up earlier, are not that team or not that ownership group at this exact moment.
Right.
That is just writing blank checks off the books to say, hey, let's bring them all in. At least at this moment, down the road, we'll see how, the money, I'm sure they're making plenty more money in that Allegiant Stadium, or at least this year, than they will. Than they did it. Oakland was great. Don't get me wrong, but that Coliseum, the A's are now dealing with it in baseball.
Right.
It's not really up to par for Major League standards. But with that, time for our final thoughts. Coach Lupian, you're up first.
It's just it's getting cliche. I feel like Luke LaLoosh right now saying we're one more week closer to football. And it's going to be a fun time. It's going to be a good season. With all the COVID protocols and all that stuff, the vaccinations, the testing, and all the cards. I think now that they kind of figured out a procedure, protocols, and stuff like that, things are going to go a whole lot smoother. It's going to be a fun year. I didn't think last year was fun versus last year was just a relief that we had a football season. I think it's going to be a fun NFL year, and I'm glad fans are getting back in, and I'm glad guys are making moves and teams are wanting to win, and there's no tanking for anybody. Regardless of all the off-season stuff, whether it's Watson or Aaron Rodgers and him having to hear his name in the media, I'm looking forward to this season. I'm not in any fantasy football team. Finally, for a season, I just got burned out from that. But I'm looking forward to a fun regular season, and whomever gets in the playoffs and have a go at it. I look forward to talking to my guys on Wednesday and having a show and just enjoying these moments 1 week closer to the NFL season.
Amen. Mr. Martinez, final thoughts from yourself.
He's right. We're 1 week closer. Who was here when we first started doing this? 2.5, 3 months ago? And we said, I know it seems a long way down the road, but before you know it, it's going to be August, the first preseason game, and here we are. We're 2 weeks away from the first game of the season. Monday Night Football, it'll be the Raiders. Thursday Night Football, that first game is going to be great. It's just going to be good to see it. And all I'm really hoping for, it's kind of like when you're going to be a parent. Do you want a boy or do you want a girl? I just want it to be healthy. So what do you want for the 2021 season? I want it to be healthy for the fans, for the players, and I just want it to go out without a hitch. I hope we don't have anything happen at any stadium, at any venue, where people just get too out of control, too ridiculous. Everybody needs to just take their foot off the gas a little bit and just enjoy the fact and appreciate that our first world problems of our team just got beat is just that, a first world problem.
Amen. Yeah, that's a great way to kind of put it into perspective. Last few years, I call them sad naps. The Eagles play at 10 a.m. my time. So, might have had some beers throughout that game, maybe make you a little drowsy, and then the Eagles go out and lose. It's time to go take a little bit of a sad nap and wake up for the night game. But I think you said it perfectly. Go out and let's make the reason that teams win or lose because of what happened on the field, not what happened off the field. What's going on, Kirk Cousins or, situations like that. Let's make the 2021 NFL season about football and nothing else. Obviously, a lot of questions are going to be answered in the next few months. And probably a lot more questions will be brought up more than answers answered. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And as always, it's going to be every Wednesday. Us three at the very least are going to be able to come and bring you everything that we have. Obviously, we still have one more division to break down. It will be next week. It'll be Coach Lupian's jurisdiction, the NFC South. Yeah, we're gonna see, if the 78-year-old Tom Brady can win another championship. We're gonna see what happens, with the definitely new look Saints. And look, Sam Darnold in Carolina is definitely a storyline as well. But don't want to forget about the Falcons or anything. But Kyle Pitts, Matt Ryan, we'll see how that goes. But with that, that is all we have for you today here on the NFL Weekly, presented by the First Off the Bench podcast network. Once again, everyone comes off the bench. We are first. It is time for you all to go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. We will talk to you all next week and break it down the NFC South. Y'all take care, and we'll talk to you soon.
Peace out, everybody.